One of the hardest parts about making a song or a beat is the mix. And if you've ever tried to master something yourself, only to find that you can't get it loud enough without completely squashing the life out of it, the first place I would look is the kick. Here's why. Kick samples are all over the place. Some of them are super clicky, others have a lot of boom to them, and still more, like some vintage or analog samples, have absolutely zero top end to work with. Say I'm working on a song with headphones on. The kick doesn't sound loud enough, so I turn it up. But really the issue was that kick sample didn't have enough high frequency content. So all I really did was throw my mix out of whack. But I didn't know that because I don't have ears of gold, I'm just a guy. And I won't find out there's an issue until I perform and record the song into my computer, export it, and finally check it in the car. Or even worse, I get excited about it and just send it over to a friend who's just like, this is a super frustrating path to go down, and I think we've all been there. So I want to offer an alternative to anybody working in a sample-based environment. EQ all your kicks the same. You might wonder what the best way to EQ a kick is, and I don't really have an answer for you because I don't know either. But I can tell you what guidelines I try to follow. I think it's also worth mentioning that some kicks don't want to be stuffed into the same shaped box as others, so you'll need to use your ears and make some judgment calls along the way. In general, I want my kicks to mix loud. So when they're played at the same volume as another kick, my kick sounds louder on average, regardless of whether you're listening on phone speakers or on a system with a sub. It also means that they need to stay out of the way of other potential elements in the song. A kick with a lot of energy in the mids is going to conflict with the bass and the melodic elements, so we don't want to do that. I like my kicks to look like this. This is based off of the super neutral sounding stock Digitac kick. If you want to model your kick after a different sample, be my guest, but make sure it mixes loud. I chose this one after A/B testing a ton of different kicks, dropping them into a beat at the same level and seeing how much a limiter would squash them. I declared the least squashed kick the winner, since using it allowed the beat to be mastered the loudest. I should also mention that I only used kicks that I thought sounded good. Let's go over the inflection points. At the beginning, it's high passed. You'll want to let the fundamental, which is the sub, through, and chop everything below it. It looks like this fundamental is at about 50 Hertz, which is a low G. An excellent choice. The fundamental sits at plus 1 dB. I use the freeze function on FabFilter Pro Q3 with the scale set to plus or minus 6 decibels to measure this, by the way. Next, we have the power range of the kick, which should be close to about 150 Hertz. We want that at plus 2 dB. It's going to be the loudest part of the kick. Our next inflection point is at about 250 Hertz. You can think of 250 as the beginning of the low mids, and that's why we're scooping it there at negative 1 dB. We don't want to take up unnecessary space. You could scoop before 250, but just don't do it after. That's where most homemade kicks go wrong, because on its own, a kick sounds better with more energy here. But don't fall for it. It'll steal warmth from the rest of the mix. Next, we have the 600 to 800 range here. We want to scoop this even more to negative 3 dB. Part of the reason is the same as the cut at 250 to get out of the way of the rest of the track. But I think of this as an aesthetic cut too. Try boosting it and you'll see what I mean. It sounds like I don't know if that's coming through on the microphone, but that's what it sounds like. If you can hold this straight line here, then do it. It helps with fullness in small speakers. But if you have to make a crazy boost to get it, then just leave it out. Any crazy boost really will just emphasize the noise floor, especially once you run it through a compressor. Up here as we're leaving the low mids, a lot of kicks are just going to be non-existent. These are the kicks that are more or less silent on small speakers. If your kick is like that, layer it with a tiny transient of high-passed white noise and keep going. Here at 5K, we have our traditional click of the kick. Go ahead and get it to negative 4 dB. Clicky, but not too clicky. Sounds good on an old radio speaker or like cheap little Bluetooth speaker. Next, we have 8.7K, which you can barely see that I wrote up there. This is an essential part of the click for modern day listeners. That's because this is where iPhone speakers reach their most powerful response. So don't sleep on 8.7K. It's just as important as 5K, if not more so. -4 dB. Finally, we have a roll off with the highs. Nothing after 8.7K matters to me. Just get rid of it without making it sound unnatural. I have it at about -5 dB at 15K. So now that you've standardized your kicks, mixing should be a lot easier. Mix on headphones, on speakers, on the go, whatever. It's all gonna be a lot closer to your original intention because all of your samples have the same amount of click, leave the same amount of room, and have the same amount of power and sub. You'll find that different tracks will then offer different opportunities rather than running into limitation after limitation, frustration, and the kind of workflow where you complete a track and realize it's fundamentally flawed, forcing you to choose between throwing it out entirely or just redoing a bunch of stuff that burns you out. So I hope this helps. Thanks for watching.